always forget to press record when I do introductions, and he's been getting on to me. So I remembered this time. So we're recording tonight, and this is just for internal purposes, for training and whatnot. Most of you are returning. Thank you so much for returning. So you already know this, but for those of you that don't, if you can keep your cameras on, you yourself muted unless you have a question or unless Mr. Turnipseed asks you a question. You can also use the chat and ask me questions if you would like. You can raise your hand, whatever. So make sure that your questions are appropriate and that we have fun. And I'm super excited to welcome Mr. Turnipseed tonight to talk to us about interviewing skills. And if you could just give us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be doing with us tonight. And I'm going to mute myself.
All right, very well. I'm going to unmute myself, which I oftentimes forget to do. Well, hope you guys are doing well. Everybody having a good 2021 so far? We're getting some half nods. All right, very good. We'll take it. Take it. Well, my name is Sam, and obviously Miss Sandy called me Mr. Turnipseed a couple of times, which I guess I have to get used to because I'm old. So you kind of have to get used to it at a certain point. But I'm been friends with Joe and Sandy for 13 years, 14 years, somewhere in that range. It's getting on up there. So so there is a young man on here who actually was not born when I met his parents, but it is, it's good. It's good to meet that young man today, or good to see that young man today. But yeah, so just a little background on myself. I'm here in Chattanooga, living, been here for on and off since like 1997, went to college here and then moved to Washington, D.C. for a little while, which in case anybody's paying attention, it's kind of a crazy place to be right now. So I'm not recommending it right this very minute. But that's where we were up there for a couple of years. I taught school for 2 years. I wasn't very good at it, quite frankly. I appreciated the job. I'm glad they paid me for it, but it was probably a good thing for me not to do that forever. But came down to Chattanooga and got into the finance business. So I've been doing banking for a while. In fact, where is everybody kind of located? Can either send it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and tell me. I don't know if they can. I don't know if they have the controls to unmute themselves, but where are you guys? I know a few of you are Chattanooga. Where are you guys from? Haley, I'll call on you because you happen to be the closest one in my purview there.
I'm in Ohio.
Ohio, cool. Do you mind me asking what part of Ohio?
Lorraine.
Don't know where that is, but it sounds nice. What's it? Is it close to like Columbus or one of the big towns?
I think so.
Okay. Well, we'll take it. We'll take it. Joseph, what about you? Where are you from?
Signal Mountain, Tennessee.
Signal Mountain. I'm familiar with this place. I can't see it from my house. I have to go out of my driveway to see it, but I know where it is. Is it Wrists? Am I saying it right?
Sorry, that's my last name.
Okay,
And
cool.
yeah, I'm from Chattanooga/Hickson.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm technically from Chattanooga/Hickson. Lynn, what about you?
I've actually, I'm signing in for my daughter, Kaylee here.
Okay.
And we're from Lakewood, Colorado.
Oh, very cool. My wife and I were just out in Colorado like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Yes, it's very nice. We like snow. We don't live in it. I think maybe that's why we like it so much. But we really like it a lot. And then, so Allie, I know where you're from. Jake, I know where you're from. And Blake, I've met you, I think once, maybe once. Katie, I know where you're from. Holly, can you hear me okay, Holly?
I'm from Lorraine, Ohio.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, so I live down here in Chattanooga. As I told you, moved here from Washington, D.C. And so when I say work in finance, like people can say that and it means a whole lot of different things. That means they could work at a bank and like, if you've ever been into a bank before, there's people that kind of take your money and cash checks or whatever. Or there's other people that like sit behind a desk and like help you open a checking account or a savings account or like whatever. If you have a problem or whatever, then they'll help you to fix it. And then there's other folks that you don't really see a whole lot. They're behind the scenes. Maybe they're dealing with like operations or whatever. That's a whole other group of people. And then there's people like me that you won't see in the office very much. But I do a lot of, I guess you could call it like financing stuff that you might like live in, or that you might work in, or that some of your relatives may work in. Like I've financed some veterinary hospitals. We've done some daycare facilities. We do a lot of housing. So like, that's the kind of stuff we did. But I started out, like I said, in Chattanooga, and then up in DC as a school teacher. So anyway, I don't want to bore you with the background, but the reason I want to tell you that is, everything that I have done, I had to at some point sit down in front of someone that I did not know and try to, in some way, shape, or form, convince them that I was the right person for the job. And I have been doing that really since I was 14 years old. That's the first job that I got when I was 14 years old. So have any of you guys worked yet? Have you worked outside of your homes yet? Anybody done that yet? Raise your hand if you have. Okay. All right. So you're in a good spot right now. Just keep doing it as long as you can, because once you start, you have to do it a lot. So I'm 42 right now. So I've been working for 28 years in some way, shape, or form. Now, when I say that, I don't dislike it. I enjoy it, but I feel like, I think a lot of you guys feel the same way, that you want to always get better. You always want to improve. Wherever we are right now, we always want to take the next steps to improve ourselves. So a lot of that, especially in the job world, a lot of that means you're going to have to interview to go to the next level. So we're going to talk about some real practical stuff on how to do that. What I think to do it well. I'm not the only expert on this. I tell you, don't even know if I would tell you that I'm an expert on this. However, I have done it a few times, and it has been a skill that you can develop. And in fact, I'm going to pull up this screen here. I want to make sure you guys can see this. All right. Stand by here. It should transition to an actual slideshow here in a minute. Or at least that's what I'm going to have you guys believe for a second. Pretty sure I hit that button. Let's try it one more time. There we go. You guys see it okay?
We do.
All right, you guys can see it. All right, good deal. Good deal. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the Netflix show Nailed It, when they're trying to like make cakes to look like other people. That has nothing to do at all with what I'm going to talk about. However, I really like that. I like that saying. So anyway, so this is just simple tips to hammer out an interview and to do well. While I'm doing this, can some of you guys like unmute and tell me what you think you want to do when you get older? Like maybe a job that you want to have, or something that you want to go to school for, or I know a lot of you guys haven't worked yet, but what do you think you want to do? Somebody give me something.
I want to be eventually a federal prosecutor.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So, and you're kind of working your way towards that, like you're moving into school next year for that particularly, right?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Anybody else?
When I grow up, I want to be, I want to have like a degree in business management and become a business owner.
Cool. Awesome. Very good. What, anybody else?
I plan on being an animator.
Oh, very cool. Do you draw now, Haley?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, is the stuff you're doing, is it digital or is it like all hand stuff?
I do a bit of both.
Very cool. I was not one of those people that was blessed with any artistic ability whatsoever. If I draw a stick man, you're not sure what it is. So I think that's awesome that you can do that. Who else?
I want to be like an interior designer or an architect of some kind. All right, take that.
Okay, very cool. Anybody else?
Yeah.
I want to be an author.
You'll be an author, you said? Who said that? I can't see who said that.
Polly.
Okay, cool. And I thought I heard somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, Jake. Yes.
I actually want to fix like old cars, make them better.
Ah, very cool. Very cool. So there's a lot of what you guys said is entrepreneurship, meaning that you would be working for yourself, which by the way, I love, I respect like crazy. I think that's the backbone of our country. I think it's amazing. I will tell you what I'm going to share with you guys here. Anytime you're looking to build a team, you're going to look for people that are going to want to separate themselves. So even if you're on the side of being the one who is interviewed, or if you are on the side of someone who is interviewing someone else. I think these things are going to be valuable for you. I hope they are. I know they would have been, I would have liked to have learned them earlier instead of learning in the way I did, which was by messing it up. So let's just start here. That's me, and Robin is my wife. She's the girl next to me, not the little one. That's my daughter. And then the other one on the far, I guess to y'all's left, is my son, Caleb. Rob and I have been married for 20 years. We've got a couple of kids. And so that's, if you can see on the left there, those are the places that I've worked in the bank. I worked for a big bank called Wells Fargo a long time ago. I worked for a bank called Wachovia, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was fun while it lasted. And then I worked for a bank called First Volunteer here in Chattanooga, and now I work for a bank called Southern Heritage. So I'm what's called a commercial lender, which, like I said, I just mean that I don't do any loans to people. I do loans to businesses. It's pretty much how that works. So, but I'm going to kind of walk through some of that stuff and kind of how it all like panned out for us. But I've got a quiz for you. All right. Now, this was fun for me because I totally didn't know these until I straight up stole them off of the research that I got. When I say stole, I mean, they did the research for me. I just borrowed it. I'll give it back to them when I'm done. So I want you guys to answer. Can y'all, yeah, I'll probably just want you just to say it out loud. So what percentage of interviewers don't give jobs to interviewees, basically people that have no company knowledge? Let me set this up a little bit. You're going in and you're going to have an interview with somebody, some company. Let's call it an architect firm, or Haley, you're going to Pixar, okay? And you're going to have that conversation with them about having a job. What percentage of interviewers don't even consider you if you don't know anything about their company? Anybody want to guess? So you're going in, you don't know anything about the company, you just sit there. What do you think your chances are to be able to get that job? Say it again.
0.
0. So not a bad answer. What else? Go ahead, Blake.
Maybe like 36%.
Well, that's pretty darn close. It is 47% of interviewers do not give jobs to interviewees with no company knowledge. So we're going to talk more about these things. I'm just kind of setting this conversation up. So now this is fun for me. 33% of recruiters know that they're going to hire somebody within the first how long? How long do you think it takes a recruiter?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Good answer. That's what my wife said. Anybody else?
10.
10. Keep going.
1 minute.
I don't know who said 1 minute, but it's pretty darn close. 90 seconds. So within 90 seconds, the first minute and a half that you're in there having a conversation, that recruiter is going to have a pretty darn good indication on whether or not they're going to hire you or not. So what I'm going to do over the next little while is I'm going to try my best to empower you to make that 90 seconds really count. Okay. This is interesting. And this next one is fun for me. 65% of candidates that don't make blank don't get the job.
Eye contact.
This is a little, oh yeah, spot on. Eye contact. That's exactly right. So that it's just a sign of confidence, and it's something that you can develop. There's nothing in here that I'm telling you that is out of your control. So 65% of hiring managers say that
Confidence.
blank. Okay, that's a good question. That blank can be a deciding factor between two similar candidates. So it's not confidence, although I'm sure it matters.
Responsibility.
It's actually a little more practical than that.
Experience.
Also a good answer, but think something very practical.
Posture.
You're getting closer. Something that every single one of you guys are participating in right this minute.
Body language.
Dress code. The way people dress can be a deciding factor between two equal or similar candidates. Now, this next one's not going to be a very easy one for you to answer, but I want to set it up. 33% of employers say that too much blank or blanking too much is a common mistake interviewees make. Yeah, spot on. Oh, gosh, that's amazing. So I don't know. You guys may very well have the same exact website that I'm going to share with you later. So last couple things. Recruiters disregard. This is really big for you young guys too. Recruiters disregard 76% of resumes that have an unprofessional
Font.
Good. That was a good answer. That was not it. That's a good answer.
Name?
Nope, not a name.
Email.
Yep, that's it. Email address. So let's say that Jake has an email that says, hot stuff Jake. That's not really funny. I mean, I'll try to find a funnier one for you. But whatever. To be honest with you, if it's hot stuff Jake at Gmail, I'm not calling him back. I just got to be honest. I'm not calling him back. So you might want to change that. One of the recommendations that you just use your name, or with your name with some sort of number behind it. But Gmail doesn't hurt you. Hotmail doesn't hurt you. Yahoo doesn't hurt you. But having the crazy things on the front end will hurt you. Now, last one. I don't think that you guys have ever, we're going to talk about resumes very briefly, but with the fact that none of you guys have gone into the workforce just yet, that's maybe a little bit too heavy for this conversation. I'll just breeze over it. But a resume is something where you put down all of your experience and all of your education and your interest, and you bring that with you, or you send that to a recruiter, or you send that to the HR department. They'll review it and decide to call you in or not. So the very first impression that you have is a resume. What do you think the rejection rate for resumes with an attached photo is?
60%.
88%. So whatever you're doing, don't have a crazy email address and don't put your picture on it, because it ain't going to work it's not going to work very well for you. So anyway, so I want you to keep those things in mind. We're going to come back to them as we go. So what do you guys think? And this is kind of like participation here. What do you think that the purpose of an interview is? Now, I know the easy answer, but I want you to think through it. So what do you think the purpose of an interview is?
To see if you're qualified.
Okay, to see if you're qualified. I think that that's kind of a variation of the answer that I'm going to go for. Anybody else?
I was gonna say,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
to get to know your future employee.
Also those are very valuable. I think if you are the one that is being interviewed, if you are going in for a job, the purpose of that interview is separation, to separate yourself from everybody else that's coming in to interview for that same position. At the end here, I'll tell you a little bit of a story on how I learned that, and kind of learned it the hard way. But that's the purpose of the interview, is to separate yourself, set yourself apart from everybody else. So ask yourself this question right now. Now, some of you guys, I don't know how old everybody is on here, but I know, I think we'll probably have from 16, 17, all the way down to 13, maybe somewhere in that range. So again, you haven't worked right now, but I want you to ask yourself, would you hire yourself right now? Like right this minute, if you had a job opening at your company and you walked in the door, would you hire yourself? What I want to do is hopefully by the time we're done with this, you can ask yourself that question again and have an answer of yes. So we're going to break this down. There's three sections here of an interview. I know you guys are seeing the one in the middle. You're like, well, that's the thing, right? Interview. That's what we're talking about doing. There's a lot of important stuff on the pre-interview, like what you do to prepare for it. Yes, it's important to show up and make good impressions. As you see all that stuff there, we're going to break those things down. But there's also some things that you can do after the interview that will enhance your ability to get the job, but also more than anything, just really separate yourself. So a couple things, and I mentioned to you earlier, we were talking about one of the most important things you can do before you go into a company is to learn more about that. So about that company. So know before you go into it. But what I want to do before I get to that point is I just want to breeze over resumes real quick. Has anyone on here, have you ever done a resume? Anybody on here at all? I can't see everybody at the same time. So
I've
say
had
yes.
to fill out a couple resumes or somewhat resumes, their college applications and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Mary Kate, did you say you had done one?
Yeah, I did a resume for like just a class that was just learning how to write resumes and stuff. And I've done applications for specific jobs.
Gotcha. How did you feel about that resume process? You feel like it was pretty easy, or were you kind of lost through it? I was lost through mine when I did it the first time.
Probably a bit lost.
Okay. All right. Well, what I did here, and Sandy, I can email this presentation to you because there are a few places that have some hyperlinks that you can either share with them or whatever. But that little hyperlink up there for Teen Life, it is, as you can see right there, 10 tips for building your high school resume. So as you guys are kind of working through and finding jobs, a lot of times when you're starting out, your first job may not necessarily need a resume. If you're going to work at Chick-fil-A or you're going to work at the mall somewhere, they may not ask for something like that. The only reason I said Chick-fil-A is because it's the Lord's chicken. It's my favorite food. And it comes up in every conversation, but you may not need one. But I'll tell you, the earlier that you can build up that skill set, the earlier you can build this thing up, the better it's going to be for you. So I'm not going to go through all those details there, but if you see that little section, that yellow section at the bottom, it says your basic information, name, address. Remember, we're not going to say hotstuffjake@gmail.com, but you want to make sure you have a good solid email address, phone, email, the whole thing. What you've done in and out of school. And listen, if you guys right now are in 9th or 10th grade, and that little activity section, the extracurricular in and out of school and the community service, those are things that you can start doing now as young people to start building up your resume. It's going to build your experience and it's going to really change the way you look at things. But when you take that stuff, like say you go work at the community kitchen, or let's say you do disaster relief. Like if there's tornadoes in the area, you go out and you pick up trash or you help people that have been displaced or whatever. It'll really help you as a person. But then that's the stuff you want to put on your resume. And guys, it's not bragging. It's really not bragging. If Allie comes to apply for a job at my company and I see that she's done those things, that tells me that this girl is not just about herself. She's about the community. She loves people. She wants to do what she can to make her entire community better, not just make her bank account better. So when you start doing those things, like look for opportunities to serve your community. As a company, especially small businesses, they love to see their employees reinvesting back in the community where their businesses are. Okay. So that's a little list there of things you want to make sure you have down. So I mentioned know before you go. If you remember what we said, what percentage of interviewers don't give job to interviewees with no company knowledge? Remember what we said?
33.
47.
47. Yes, 47. Right. So if you're taking notes, if you want to take notes, you can, or if Miss Sandy sends this out, she's welcome to. There's nothing in here that I didn't give credit to the person who actually wrote it on here. But let me kind of give you some things where you can do some research. And I want you to know that a lot of times Google is not the best place to get research. It's okay. It gives you access to some good information, but sometimes you have to dig for reliable information because anybody can put anything they want to out there on the internet about anything. You want to make sure that you have credible sources. So a company website, that's a pretty good one to go to. Now, granted, once you get in there and check that out, obviously they're not going to say anything bad about themselves, but it's still good to get in there and learn about them, find out how long they've been around, find out how many locations they have. Those are just good things for you to do. You can also ask a mentor. I know Joe and Sandy very well. We have been friends for many, many years. And I will tell you, if today, Sam Turnipseed right now, 42-year-old, was looking to go find another place to work, and I was interviewing with a company, Joe is my friend, but he also knows a lot about business here in town. I would call him and ask him. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? So a lot of you guys may have people in your lives that you can reach out to. And now you've certainly got people that are on this webcast here that would provide that kind of service for you. Like I promise you, if you reached out to Sandy, she'd be like, hey, this is what I think. This is what I've heard. This is what I know. Or the best thing is Joe and Sandy know everybody. The best thing is, hey, I know a person that works there. Let me make a phone call for you. So when you're asking a mentor, it's not just for an opinion. It's for a different way of thinking, number one. Number two, it also might be a connection, because I think I read this somewhere that 60% of new hires are done by referral. So like if you start to develop those relationships, you may be able to be referred to a new job by somebody. So ask a mentor. Then you can do a web search, Google or whatever. You can look at their social media stuff, because a lot of times companies that are really socially aware and that they're really doing good things in the community, they're going to put that stuff out there. And I hope I'm talking a lot, and I know there's a lot of words that I'm about to say, but I want you to kind of get this idea. If you have a certain interest, and I used Allie a minute ago talking about going and working at a community kitchen. If she's going to interview with a company and that company talks about the things that they've done for the community, that's one of the first things that's one of the things she'll definitely want to talk about in the interview. She'll want to say that. So a lot of times you may not see that stuff on their company website because that stuff happens so quickly, or maybe it happens like when there's a need. They're not going to change their website for that, but they can post that on their company Facebook, right? So look at those places. I think it'll really help you to start to develop a better connection with that company. And the last one you can check is the company's competitors. Now, this may not be it may not matter that much when you're, 14, 15, and 16, but when you get done with school, or even you get done with technical school, high school or college or whatever, and you're starting to kind of interview for higher level positions, you want to kind of look around and see the kind of industry these guys are in. One of the things that really benefited me at an interview when I interviewed for First Volunteer is I searched how big that bank was. And then I looked around at all the other banks that were about that size. And I actually went into a couple of them. It was good. It was good for me to do. So you can really make yourself really stand out by having knowledge not only of that company, but also other companies that they play ball against. Does that make sense? Is this making sense, by the way? One of these would help. And if you nod for too long and your eyes are closed, I'm going to assume it did not make sense. So you guys okay? Everybody having good time? We're good? Joseph? Solid? All right, good deal. All right. Thanks, Haley, for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. I can only see like 4 or 5 of you. So at a time anyway. All right. So now, next thing, we talked about dress code, right? That was one of the things that could really separate you from if you and somebody else come in and your qualifications are similar, your qualifications are similar, your backgrounds are similar, your experiences are similar. If one of you is dressed sharp and the other is dressed like they just woke up, or maybe they think they're still on the Zoom session, so they have a collared shirt and say they have shorts on. I'm not saying that's happening right now. I'm just saying it's possible. But if that is the case, then they're going to lean more toward that person who really cared about coming in. So there's a lot of words here, but I want you to hear what I'm saying. People judge you by what you're wearing, whether we like that or not. And listen, I get it. I know everybody says, well, you shouldn't judge people. Well, everybody does. I'm not saying it's okay. I don't think we should judge their moral character, but if I've got a position for somebody, I care that they care about getting the position. So when they show up and they're dressed like a bum, I don't think they care that much. I don't want to hire somebody who doesn't care. You guys know what I'm talking about? So, and so just know that if that is going to be that way, make sure you put that in your favor. Secondly, it's not about how much you spend. I will tell you, my wife and I, we have bought stuff from anything from, and I'm talking about today in this world that we live in right now, anything from Goodwill and America's Thrift Store, all the way up to buying something retail at a nice department store or something. But like, I promise you, more stuff in my closet came from TJ Maxx and Marshalls than it did from anywhere else. So like it's not about how much you spend, but you just want to dress appropriately. Now, this next little thing makes you sound like a stalker, but I will tell you, it may work in your favor. If you're unsure about like what kind of dress code you're going to, because you may know something about the company, but you may not like know what the office dress is. Like, again, don't like do a stakeout for 3 or 4 days because you're going to get arrested, but go to their parking lot before the interview and watch people come out. If they're all dressed in shorts and flip-flops, you are probably good to go in with khakis and a button-down shirt. Look, that next line is pretty important. Always dress one level up. If their style is business casual, you need to wear a suit. If they're wearing jeans and flip-flops, you can probably go in with like slacks and a button down, but I would not recommend you going to any interview, unless you're going to interview as a lifeguard in shorts and a t-shirt. Okay. Not that there's anything wrong with being a lifeguard. So I couldn't swim that well. It's better to be overdressed than underdressed most of the time. Okay. So that's that. So that's making sure you're prepared. Remember, we're all staying in the pregame right now. We talked about the company knowledge. We talked about your resume, and now we're talking about proper dress. So something like that on the far right, something like that, but not this guy over here on the left. Now, is there anything is there anything particularly wrong with what this guy is wearing? I don't think so. I think he looks fine. I will tell you though, if I have a difference, and I don't really care, I don't care anything about this guy. I don't care where he's from. I don't care his background. I don't care what color he is. I don't care any of that. All I care about is what I interpret when he walks in, how I interpret he feels about the importance of this meeting. So if he comes in with a t-shirt and a backpack on versus a guy who comes in and slacks and a button down, I'm just going to, if they're equally matched, I'm going to go with the person who I think cared more about the meeting. Does that make sense? I will tell you, I go to church at Calvary Chapel in Chattanooga. Okay. It's a big church in Chattanooga. And sometimes I will lead worship, which means I play the guitar and sing and stuff. I do so in flip-flops because I like flip-flops. Our church really doesn't mind. I wear those. When I come to church and if it's during the summertime, I will wear shorts and a t-shirt. So I don't have any problem with dressing down, but just remember, we're talking about an interview, right? We're talking about going to an interview for a job you want to work out. So this is not about the way you live your life and every other thing. I'm going to talk about a couple of those things in a minute, but this is just about trying to set yourself apart from the other people that show up. Okay. All right. So now we've made it through the pre-game. We're coming into game time. Okay. So number one, be on time. If you're there at 9:15, don't bother coming. Don't. Now, here's if the meeting is at 9. And I don't mean don't bother coming because I do understand traffic and all that sort of stuff. But I want to tell you guys something now that I will tell you for me has been a real separator when I didn't do it right, and an even bigger separator when I did it right. It wasn't traffic's fault. I didn't leave early enough. It wasn't, I didn't get caught by a train. I didn't leave early enough. Like there are a lot of things that are going to happen that will slow you down in your transit or whatever. You just want to make sure you leave early enough. So if you're there at 9:15, you're definitely late. If you're there at 9 o'clock, I consider that to be late. 15 minutes early is on time. Okay. And I'm talking about for an interview. Now, if you clock in at some place, once you get the job, clock in when you're supposed to clock in and then clock out when you're supposed to clock out. Right. But when you're talking about an interview, you want to make sure that you're there on time. Again, what's the purpose of an interview?
Separation.
Yeah, separation. That's what you're trying to do. So you want to set yourself apart. All right. So that's number one is timeliness. Number two is be kind to everyone. Be polite to everyone. You will, when you first start working somewhere, if you go into a first interview, you don't know when you walk in that door who owns the place, who's the janitor, who's the son of the owner or the daughter of the owner. You don't know any of this, or who the father or mother is of the owner. So just be polite to everyone. I could not get volume to come through the Zoom thing last night when I was testing it. So I've skipped the slide, but have you guys ever seen, it's a video called The Interviewer. It's on YouTube called The Interviewer. Anybody seen that? You may or may not have. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put that, I'll grab that link and I'll put it in the chat box because you guys need to spend 12 or so minutes sitting back and watching that. It is super good. Oops. But I'm going to refer to it again here at the end. But the most important thing I can tell you is don't prejudge anybody. Whenever you're walking in, and it's not because you're trying to get a job. It's because, quite frankly, you're trying to add value. There's a little book that I read to my kids on a pretty regular basis. Joe and Sandy, I'm sure you guys have seen this too, about being a bucket filler. It's a cute little book. But basically, have you guys seen this before? You ever heard about this little idea, this bucket filler idea? All right. So Joseph, here's the deal. Everybody walks around with a little invisible bucket, and it's basically got, when you compliment someone, you're putting something in their bucket. When you criticize someone, you're taking something out of their bucket. So you want to go around and be a bucket filler. As corny as that may sound, I promise you, if you take that attitude, it will totally redefine the relationships with 90% of the people that you have in your life. So be a bucket filler. So when you're walking into an interview, say hello, hold the door for someone, be kind. I promise you, as an employer, I look for stuff like that. I really do. 3 things in human life are important. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. So now that doesn't mean be a pushover. That doesn't mean be weak, but that means going out with a mind. I'm going to be polite to everyone. Being polite will cost you nothing if you do it and could cost you everything if you don't. Okay. So be polite. Now, next thing I want to get, somebody was saying, I don't know who this was, guys, earlier that mentioned the word body language when we were talking about one of the separations. I think, I don't know, Sylvia or Elena, it may have been one of you two that said that. I can't remember, but there's a term called nonverbal communication. Nonverbal is anything that you don't say that people still hear. 93% of that communication is like nonverbal. So for example, I'm going to use Blake for a second because I'm looking at him. Now, I just said it and he changed. When I said Blake's name, he went from looking up above the computer, and I'm sure you're engaged if you got headphones on. I'm not picking on you, but he went from looking above the computer to looking right at the computer, looking at me, and smiled. Well, he didn't say anything, but what he said was, without saying a word, he goes, "Oh, I heard my name. That's my favorite word in the world." By the way, Sam's my favorite word too. So I heard my name. That's my favorite word. And number two, I'm now engaged. And so he said, "Thank you for calling me out. What would you like? What do you want to say next?" I mean, he didn't say any of those words, but those actions happened right away. I will tell you, I can look at Sylvia. I can look at Elena. I can't, Holly's kind of fuzzy on my screen here, but I can look at Katie. I can look at Mary Kate. I can look at Joe and Sandy. I can look at Joseph, Haley. I can look at everybody without you saying a word. I can pick up on something you're trying to tell me. Right. So just, yeah, like that, like Sylvia, I think that was you. I don't know which one is Sylvia, because you're both on the same, but when I said that, somebody went, it's like, "Oh yeah." So that's all she said. "Oh yeah," to me without saying a word. So here's some little points here that'll make you really like stand out. So lean in when you're at an interview, when you're at game time. Okay, you send your resume in, you've got the interview. Lean in a little bit or sit up straight to show that you're interested. Allie got this answer right off bat when I said, candidates that don't make eye contact 64% of the time, or whatever the percentage was, don't get the job. Keep eye contact so you look honest. Now, don't be weird. We have a rule in our family, and that is be normal. But we don't necessarily know that we like normal, because normal, to be honest with you, doesn't really accomplish very much. So I'm okay with that not being normal, but there's a fine line between not being normal and being weird. So like, don't be weird. Don't stare at people like that. It's just weird. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I even felt weird doing that. So don't do that, but engage, nod your head, but don't nod too much, because then it looks like you don't care or you're nodding off. Right. So just think about how you would want to be responded to when you were talking. So much of this, and now I'm about to say something that may go completely over your head, but so much of this kind of thing right here is self-awareness. You have to be aware of how your nonverbal communication is coming out. Okay. So think about it. Okay. You will reach a point in your life that in order to separate yourself from the masses, from everybody else, you'll have to be the person that thinks about stuff like this. You're just going to have to be aware. Okay. So lean in, sit up straight, keep eye contact, don't nod too much. Now, the next one, and this is mainly for Katie. Katie, watch your language. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding around. All right. So Katie's like, haha, not a funny joke. But no matter how you talk at home or with your friends, watch your language in an interview. Like, I know you guys are 13 to 17, right? But listen, I learned a lot of words when I was 12 and 13 years old that I didn't need to be saying. I'm not saying any of you guys know these words, but you've heard of them. Okay, I don't need anybody to tell me what they are right now. Jake's like, "You want to know? I'll tell you what they are. I'll tell you all of them right now." So, but watch your language when you're in. You want to keep it professional, keep it sharp. You don't have to have this amazing vocabulary and impress them with all these amazing words. Just don't cuss. Don't say bad words, and don't use a lot of slang, and don't say, "Hey, yeah, brah," or don't say brother or dude or whatever, or "Hey, girl," or "Hey, sweetie." And when you're doing an interview, just be professional. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter where this is not going to be perfect at first. You're not going to come off with it. Well, you shouldn't drop any bombs when you're having your first interview, but don't worry about it being perfect whenever you go into your first interview. But just know some of these things as you progress through your career will come back to you and be more valuable. Now, what I've just put on the screen here is a lot of stuff. It is a lot of stuff. So I'm going to read through them real quick, and I'm going to tell you some common things that you're going to get. Now, depending on the level of job you're going for example, if you are, I'll use Haley for an example. If Haley is sitting down with Pixar and she is interviewing for whatever, I don't think the job that you're for graphic design, I'll use that for an example. Well, they're probably going to ask her a few things that they couldn't get off the resume. They may say, well, tell me a little about yourself. Well, if you say, well, I live on, and you give the address, they know that. My email is, they don't care about that. My phone number, they don't care about that. What they're asking is, yes, they see where you're from and where you live and what your college experience, like what your education experience is, but like have a good answer for that question. So if someone were to say, hey, Sam, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm 42. I'm married. Robin and I have just celebrated 20 years, actually, a couple of weeks ago, and got 2 kids. My son is 14, and he's an animal. And my little girl, it turned me into a big sissy. That's what I would say. That's pretty much what I say all the time. So, I mean, by the way, what is important to you will be one of the first things you say when they say, tell me about yourself. So you may say, Haley might say, I'm Haley. I live in Ohio, and I absolutely love to create. It is my favorite thing. I love to take something from my imagination and put it on paper. Well, they may see your experience and they may see your education on your resume, but they didn't feel you on your resume. When you say something like that, they'll feel you. Does that make sense? Y'all tracking with me on this? Okay. What are your biggest strengths? What are your biggest weaknesses? Can I give you one thing to not say on biggest weaknesses? Don't say, well, some say I try too hard or that I work too much. It's just lame. So don't say that. I'm just telling you right now. I don't care if you remember this in 15 years from now, but just don't say that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That is a great question. And I think you should be thinking about that every day of your life, because we want to make decisions with the future in mind, not with just the moment in mind. Live in the moment, but prepare for the future. So the next one is, out of all the candidates that we're talking to, why should we hire you? I've got that one starred because I have a little story to wrap up with here in just a minute. And why did you leave your current job? Don't say, well, I'll talk about that in a second. Those are going to be some questions you're going to get. This other little list of 4 are really good things that you can ask your employer. Okay. I'm giving you too much to be able to digest right now, but hopefully you'll be able to have access to this somewhere. What would you like to see me do in the first 3 months? Like, what would you like to see me accomplish in the last 90 days? If I have a candidate that asks me that question, I know I've got a person who wants to be a part of the team. It's a good thing. What are 3 things that you see your best teammates do? Like those are really good. What really drives results? What are the company's goals, and how can I fit into that? There's a lot of stuff that I'm giving you guys that will absolutely not apply until 5 years from now. But if you start thinking about them now, it's going to put you in so much better a spot when you're 20, 22, 24 and going for your first, I want to say real job, because every job is real that I've ever found, but your first job that you're able to really kind of like build a career around. Okay. Now, last couple things here. Whenever they say, why did you leave your last job? Like, don't whine. Don't say, well, my boss was a jerk, or the supervisor always picked on me, or it was just unfair. Listen, I hear that stuff, and I hear they're going to say that when they leave this job. So I'm not like, immediately I start putting that person in a category of someone who doesn't take personal responsibility, and personal responsibility will serve you so well for the rest of your life. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to leave a job because maybe the boss was a jerk. Maybe the supervisor always did pick on you, and maybe the workload wasn't fair. All these things may be true, but you didn't leave the job because of those things. You left the job because you wanted to better yourself. You were looking for an opportunity to better yourself. So always kind of move that direction. When that question gets asked, take personal responsibility. You can say the environment was great. There were certainly been some things that I would have changed about it, but I know for the future that I wanted, I needed to make a change. Like that's, you can move that direction. Okay. Okay, so this is the last thing, and you can't share this with anyone because there's a secret phrase in here that has gotten me every job that I have gotten for the last 4 that I've gotten, which has been since 2008 when I met Joe. Well, 2007. So this was the one that separated me. So here we go. Here's the story. It's Friday, January the 11th. I didn't put the date on here, but it was 2008. So Friday, January 11th, 2008. I have been referred to a bank called Wachovia by my friend named Christy. Remember Christy, by the way, Joe? Remember Christy? She sat behind us. So,
Yep.
So Christy referred me. And so I went into an interview with a lady named Kim, who ended up being my boss. So we go through the interview. She sees my resume, yada, yada. She goes, Sam, we've interviewed about 50 people for this position. Why should we pick you? And so this is the phrase, but you can't tell anybody. You can use it, but you can't share it outside of this meeting. And I know this sounds really arrogant and I don't even care. I'm going to tell you, it'll totally work. Jake, I looked her in the eyes and I said, Kim, I will be successful either here at this bank or somewhere else. Now, I know that sounds arrogant. You can't say that out of the gate. You can't walk in and say, I'm going to be, like beat your chest and say, I'm going to be successful. And I wasn't ugly about it. I said, Kim, I will be successful and it's going to be here at this bank or somewhere else, but I know I'll be successful. And so I didn't think anything else about it. I left the interview. I got an email from a recruiter. In fact, I still have those emails. I looked at them last night. That's how I knew the times. I literally have it in my Gmail after all these years. This has been 12 years ago and this impacted me that much. So Wednesday, January the 16th, which is 5 days later. So Friday was the 11th. The following Wednesday, I had a second interview with Kim's boss, Mike. So he asked me the same question, which I found out later because Kim told him to ask me the same question. She said, Sam, we've narrowed it. He said, Sam, we've narrowed it down to 2 candidates. We have 2 of you. Why should we pick you out of the 2? And I said, Mike, I mentioned this to Kim last week, but I just know I will be successful. And it's either going to be at this bank and we'll work together or it'll be somewhere else. I left. I don't know if you guys can see the bottom here. That was at 10:15. I walked out. At 10:16, I got an email and it said, you're hired. So that was the turning point in my professional career. Went from working, and Joe would agree with this, a dead end job because we were working it together. It was terrible. That's how I met him, by the way. I'm super thankful. It was one of the greatest relationships in my life. But I went from working a dead end job to a totally redefined, it really set us in the right direction, quite frankly. So I just want to encourage you to get to a spot where you believe that statement. I will be successful. And God's doing this stuff like this, hanging out with Miss Sandy and Mr. Joe, getting to know these people, listen to how they think. It will help you to believe that statement more and more. Like this kind of thing that you're doing will separate yourself automatically. What you're doing right now, not everybody else is doing. There are 13 people on here, including me and Sandy and Joe. So that means there's 10 of you on here that are investing in that statement about I will be successful. So I want you to put that in your mind and I want you to believe it. And when you go into that interview and you have those conversations, you won't be saying it to impress them. You will say it because it's true. So final ways to separate, this is at the end. Okay. And I'm running a little long here, but final ways to separate yourself when you're done, when you leave, write a handwritten thank you note. It is so rare to get anything handwritten. So if you do that, it really separates you. If they ask you for references, make sure you give them, but then follow up and follow through. If they tell you to do something, if they tell you to go read something, if they tell you to go do something, just do that stuff. Just be good for your word. Those little things like that are kind of tests for accountability. They want to see if you're actually going to do they're going to see if the steak is as good as the sizzle. The interview is the sizzle. The job is the steak. They want to make sure that the steak is as good as the sizzle. So I want to ask you again, as we wrap up here, do you believe that you would hire yourself? And what I hope that you can take some of these things we talked about and give an emphatic yes to that. I really do. And I believe that you can. It's a progression, but I really believe if you really start to invest in yourself now, there will not be a job that will say no to you. There will be jobs that you will say no to because every job's not right for you, but there will not be a job that will say no to you. So here's where I stole all my information. And when I say stole it, like I said, it's public. I didn't steal it. But Inc.com, Seed Scientific, Indeed.com, TeenLife.com, and YouTube. So that right there, that little YouTube, that is the video that I was talking about. Sandy, you want me just to email this to you when we're done?
Yes, you can. And if you haven't already, put in the chat box, your email address, and I'll make sure that that gets over to you if you would like it. A few of you already have, but anybody that hasn't, if you will do that for me.
Cool. So those are the resources. That YouTube video there, I strongly recommend it. It's great. It's really, it'll do a lot for you to really understand the value that every person has. I just also want to thank so much the opportunity to share with you guys, share with you and share with the Rise Up community this. And I'm proud to work with Joe and Sandy. They've been my friends for a lot of years, and knowing what they're doing and what you guys are doing to separate yourself from everybody else is really, really impressive. I'm really proud of you guys. I don't know you. I know some of you, but I don't know many of you guys, but I'm so proud of you taking this time to invest in your future. It's a big deal. Not everybody does it. And listen, the fewer people that do what you do, the more, first of all, the more impact you'll have. And second of all, the more money you'll make, which helps. Money's not the most important thing in the world, but it's probably in the top 10. So, all right, guys. Well, Sandy, I'm done. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. And I know that I got stuff out of it. So I'm confident that you guys got something out of it. And again, if you've sent your email address over, I will make sure that you get a copy of this when Mr. Sam sends it to me. And I'm sorry, you're not old. You might be a little older than me, but we're not old. So
I'm older than all y'all. All of y'all. You can just about add half of these folks together. And
thank you all for coming tonight. One thing I forget to mention, because I'm so excited about our speakers every week, that I don't know that I've ever introduced myself to you guys. I just say, hey, it's Rise Up. Here's our speaker. So Joe and I are the founders of Rise Up, and we are thrilled that you guys are here with us. Our mission is to help you guys succeed in your futures. Like Mr. Sam said earlier, you're setting yourselves apart just by being here. And I greatly appreciate your participation. And I hope that you come back next week. We're having a military panel where if you've ever been interested in any branch of the military, or not maybe even joining, just you don't know much about it, there are going to be different representatives from each branch on that are going to answer questions and talk about their experiences. So come back next week for that. Mr. Sam mentioned resume a couple times. We actually have a workshop in April. So check our Facebook page or our website on resume writing specifically. So you'll learn a little bit more about that down the road. So if you haven't already, check out our Facebook or website and get our class schedule, because I've got us booked all the way through the end of June, somewhere in June already, with a different speaker every night, a different topic every night, and some special classes in there on other days of the week too. So pay attention. But thank you again, Mr. Sam, for being here, and everyone else for participating. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Goodbye.